So I want to talk about your process as a filmmaker and writer, because you write your projects and then you shoot them. So let's start with the writing.
I use the urban genre as my backdrop. In terms of writing the script, I usually come up with an ending and a beginning very early on. And the idea would just get sparked by the simplest of things. I'll give you an example. Like on my second feature, while I was editing...
What's the name of it?
Ghost Town. I had a trilogy of films called The Drive-By Chronicles, and Ghost Town was the second in that trilogy. Ghost Town is based off a part of this city that I grew up in. I didn't grow up in Ghost Town, I grew up in Wilmington, and there was this part of Wilmington where a lot of drug families were conducting business for years, decades. And when I was doing Sideways, which was the first film in that series, a newspaper article had come out that the ATF had arrested a lot of the people there. I mean, I knew about these guys when I was 7, and now I was in my late 30s at the time, and they finally busted all of them. So I just came with the idea, what would a love story in that area, what would that be? So that's how Ghost Town came about. It wasn't necessarily about drug dealers, and yes, they were involved, but it was a love story of these two people coming together and leaving that part of the city. So that's how that one came out. But in terms of writing, I have to earn my ending. For whatever reason, I'll see an ending and I go, that's how I want it to end, this is how I want it to start. And so a script can take, I've written scripts in 10 days, I've written scripts in 3 weeks. This current script I've been working on for past 5 years is like My Godfather 2. I can't get to my ending. So it's just taking me a long time with that one to get there, because I have to earn it or I have to change it, and I'm getting to a point where now I'm not liking the ending as much, so maybe I just take the story and see where it goes.
So you didn't go to film school?
I did not go to film school.
You
no.
did it the hard way?
Yeah, there wasn't even the internet back then to look up things. I learned about cameras through magazines, because this new digital technology was taking over. There were a ton of magazines at the time that talked about this camera that I wanted to get. There's no one way, there are no rules, and I think a lot of times I get filmmakers that reach out to me and they want some type of guarantee, or they want some type of plan that goes for A, B, C, D, and I tell them every time, I go, there is no plan. You find a way, you know what I mean? If it's important to you, you find a way. If it's not, you find an excuse. That's normally what I say.
I love that. Even though you didn't go to film school, you did go to theater school. What were some of the principles that you learned in doing acting and theater that you were able to transition with into your filmmaking?
First, the discipline and the approach to the work as a craft. It's not about validation, it wasn't about attention, it's just really about acting as a craft. And that gave me a huge edge in being able to work with actors. I'm an actor's director, I've been called that. I definitely consider myself that because I know the language. My job is to build confidence and get as much of who they are into the character. That's what I tried to do. So I had that, going in. And then in terms of directing, when we were at this acting academy, we had to direct our own scenes. At the time, I wanted to be an actor, right? But directing came so easy. I could see it very clearly, how this should be blocked. I wasn't really taught anything. And so I brought those principles, to filmmaking. There's usually a 2-week rehearsal I have with the actors on a stage, and we'll talk about character and relationships so that when we do get to set, because they have, a maximum of 5 takes, but sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 1. But when I lay that foundation down, it makes the film work, because film can be so technical sometimes, it can make it go by a little easier.
You just hit something that I don't think a lot of young filmmakers really focus on, and that is the rehearsal process. Can you talk about the rehearsal process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really starts with the audition. I don't use casting directors. I had experience, and Carla has had experience with casting directors. I'm in the urban genre. They don't get it, they don't understand it, and they don't know how to cast that. So I developed a process where I wanted to weed out good actors from good auditioners, because I think actors that come here and take cold reading workshops and all that, and there are a lot of actors that do work based on how good they are in an audition, but they can't sustain a character. That's where I'm looking for the actor. So my process weeds all that out, because what I do is I'll bring someone in, and if I sense something, I'll bring them back for the callback, but the callback is also with other actors. So they'll work together, and I'll see who can work together, where the relationships start to be authentic. A film I did called La Guapa, I had 5 possible leads. Anthony Fernandez played the lead bad guy in that, and Guapa's his wife. I brought all 5 of them back, and the only one that wasn't intimidated by him was an actress named Grace Serrano, and she got the part. It was a 3-hour process to get that. It's like I conduct my auditions like an acting workshop. So by the time we get to rehearsal, there's already an establishment of how I work. as a director. And there's something about having the director in the room, the actors step up a little bit more, you know, because it's not just the casting director. And I try to make them feel comfortable. I want them to do well. You're asking an actor to be vulnerable, you know what I mean? At least give them the respect and try to make them as comfortable as possible. Some people don't care about those things. To me, it's all dealing with human emotion and vulnerabilities, and I don't believe in manipulation as a director.
I think that a lot of young filmmakers have to understand is that as a director, you are taking the responsibility of somebody. You are opening them. Mm-hmm. So they have to trust you.
Absolutely.
And that's crucial for an actor. If you're directing me and I'm not trusting you, I'm not giving you anything.
Right.
It's not going to work. So I think that is so valuable that you do give them that, because then they get a sense of how you're taking care of them. You're the daddy here.
Right.
You got to let them know that you're protecting them on set no matter what. You're not going to let anything happen to them. So it gives them the permission to go as far as they can.
The biggest compliment I get is when people who are just normal moviegoers that come to my screenings, they just go, "Where did you find this actor? Wow, I really like this." They take note of the cast, and that makes my job a lot easier once we're on set.
Marigold The Matador had no script. I think there were 2 scenes that were slightly scripted, but
it wasn't improvised. I would just say it was unscripted.
So he would come in and give us an idea of what was happening in the scene and what, where he wanted it to end. You can't do that if you don't trust.
Right.
Even though we're married and I know what he's thinking, I have to be able to trust him, and he has to be able to trust that I can get there with the character. His ability to communicate that, and sometimes it's not communicated and you have to just trust that you're in the right place. And being on set as an actor with him, very few directors that I've worked with work the way he does.
We were going to shoot this particular scene at midnight on a Sunday at a bar that I wasn't working at anymore, but they loved me and they said, "Yeah, you could have the bar from midnight to 6 in the morning." But we had gone to San Francisco with the family, got in an accident on the way to San Francisco. After we got all checked out of the hospital, still went. Came back with a damaged car. Thanksgiving was Thursday when we got back. Friday was the rehearsal, and it was Saturday, not Sunday. We shot at midnight with Lydia and my daughter at this restaurant. That's an example of you don't stop. You keep going forward.
An amazing free location. You have everyone booked. You're not going to cancel unless you...
I mean, if we had all gotten injured, it would be a different story. Thank God we didn't.
The show must go on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, and I went to work. I went to work the day after.
Yeah, the next day after her 12 to 6.
That's independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
You got to keep going because you got the location for one day. You don't have time to play.
We shot in the LA River, and that's a whole nother thing of permits and stuff. And it never rains in LA. But of course, that day it was like thunderstorms. And I'm like, we're not going to be in the LA River with my family and my cast and get washed out. So I made the hard decision with my producer, who knew this was going to cause her some pain. I said, "Honey, we're going to have to reschedule." She's like, "Okay, no problem." She was great. I mean, she was really good. She was an associate producer on my 5th film, and she was so good on that. Well, she actually was my assistant, and I made her an associate producer because she was so helpful that I asked her to produce this film, and now she's gone on to produce other things. So
it's excellent.
Mostly female crew, with the exception of the DP.
Yeah, me and the DP were the only, and the one male actor.
Have you used the same DP for all your projects?
I mean, I have a lot of work, so I've worked with about 4 or 5 DPs.
Okay.
One of them, Scott Daniels, who did Marigold the Matador, he had worked with me on Cholo Chaplin. He's been in my life for like 20 years. He's like doing really well. He's a cameraman on James Corden's show now. He's doing really well. Very talented young man. And then Mike Teston's another filmmaker who's a director in the horror genre. He was my DP on 3 of my films. Yeah.
You do some really interesting camera
Compositions,
shots.
yeah.
Yes, I love it. Do you storyboard, or is that just
No,
you guys
I don't
instinctively
storyboard.
doing?
Because I write all of my scripts, by the time I get to set, they are storyboarded, but I know exactly in my head what I'm going for. My DPs have all liked the fact that I know what lenses I want. Now, some directors don't. Some directors care less. They say, "This is what I want," they let the DP interpret it. But I tell the DP exactly what I want. Every DP I've worked with has appreciated that. The only time that I would say I didn't do that was with Marigold. I had to trust Scott more, and Scott's a great shot composition. You know, he does great shot compositions. I have an actor playing a homeless schizophrenic man. I don't know what he's going to do. I just tell him, you got to be in this area. I'm behind Scott, and he's trying to make sure that the picture is just as good as the acting performance. I attribute Marigold a lot to him, And what's interesting is he's there, and maybe I see he's off a little bit, and I'll just tap him on the shoulder, and he'll make the adjustment. When I work with Scott, it's like we're one, because I'm not in Village, I'm over his shoulder. But with all the other ones, I know when I want to use a 35 to a 28 to an 85, and I can call those things out. And a lot of the DPs I work with really appreciate that I know my lenses, I know,
important stuff.
But I don't storyboard, I don't shot list. I only shot listed and storyboarded for one film. That was because the DP requested that. For us to have a decent working relationship, I accommodated him on that one because I knew we didn't have a lot of time or money. And so I'm like, if this is what you need, then let's do it. I don't necessarily like to work that way, but let's do it.
Every actor should be working on their own content, especially in this day and age when you have a smartphone or a laptop. You could be doing your own projects instead of just waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for somebody to call you back with a job. Start working on your own projects. You can put it up on YouTube. You can put it up on little websites. What do you think? If you like that idea, then I got a little booklet for you. I got some tricks and tips to help you get your content going. So all you have to do is put your name, your email address, and I will email you back with that booklet. What do you say? Go for it. It's free. You guys got married first and started working together, or you started working together and then got married?
Well, we started working together, producing theater together after we got out of the academy first. At that time, there really was very little for Latino actors. I mean, very little. So we learned very quickly that we had to produce our own stuff. So we were producing theater and plays that we wanted to do. And then on royalties we couldn't afford, I started writing. Yeah, then we got married in 2000.
2000, and then I think with the last $5,000 we had, he bought a camera and editing equipment.
Were you the one that started moving into film, or did you both kind of gravitate to it together?
No, I had seen a couple. I started getting into independent film at that time and was kind of like, we had gotten out of the academy. I thought, there are all these guys doing this interesting things. I think we could do better. I had no one to really judge. Like Robert Rodriguez had come out and I had read his book, but there was a certain amount of luck in terms of he got his film to the right people. That doesn't happen for a lot of us. So there was no blueprint. So I told her, I said, I'm going to take some of these one acts and construct a screenplay. But I've never written a screenplay, and I talk really fast and I think really fast. So she would type out my screenplay as I would dictate it. And so we took all these one acts and made a screenplay, and then I started researching digital technology at the time, was just starting. So it was about a year and a half of just doing research and writing the screenplay and producing theater. That was my goal. I knew I was going to go to film school after just graduating an acting academy. And so we got together our friends who are actually all really great actors as well. We shot our film, and I edited the film over a 2-year period.
We were talking earlier about off camera about Hollywood Shuffle. And not a lot of people know that Hollywood Shuffle was shot in 12 days, but over 2 years.
Right.
Because back then, in 87, there was no digital. So what Robert did, which was really brilliant, was every time he worked on a set, on a shoot, he would ask the director if he could have their short ends. And that's how he made the film.
Right.
And he would rent the camera equipment, the lighting kits and stuff on a Friday, return it Monday, so he could shoot all weekend for just the cost of one day.
Right.
He funded his own thing. There was no Kickstarter campaign. Right. He had no distribution. He didn't have anything. Nothing came to him until after everything was done.
Right.
And even then, it took a little while.
Right.
So you started doing your first film. You got your friends. In the beginning, how were you funding your revolution?
So I was working Monday through Friday, and then anything that I had to be in, we would shoot on the weekends, or I would take my vacation time. If I took a 2-week vacation, that was the time where we would.
She had done a couple of national commercials at the time. That money was coming in. I was working as an actor doing children's theater, and I was making good money doing that and bartending at night. So everything was self-funded.
So
at the very beginning. Yeah, definitely. We didn't have children at that time. We were together 7 years before our first child was born. So we didn't have those kinds of responsibilities as of yet. So by the time we had children, we kind of knew how to adjust. It's interesting when you get married, when you're an artist, you get married and you have children, that certain people in your life, sometimes it's friends and family, are like, oh, so you're going to give up your dream now. And that was like, no, we just keep continuing doing what we're doing. We'll just figure it out a way.
You guys work well together. And I've noticed that in a couple of your films, you have your children.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work? Because now it's all in the family.
Well, with our daughter, the most recent project we did, I knew it was going to take a long time, and I didn't need to deal with an actor or an actress, child actress, and their parent having to call them and get them to come in. It just was going to be an added stress on me. My daughter had acted before. My daughter is great on camera. She is just one of those people that doesn't have to do anything, and she's compelling on screen, and this character doesn't speak all that much.
And this is for
Marigold the Matador, yeah. And I knew I was going to cast Carla, not because she's my wife, because I thought she would do great in this part.
I finally got a lead after all these years.
See, sleeping with the director does pay out. So I wanted that dynamic, but my daughter is not a trained, or she's not a professional actress. So I wanted to capture that transition from 11 to 13, which is a very difficult transition from little girl to young woman, and everything that entails in terms of directing. It was 14 days over 2 years, and some days she just didn't want to do it. I'm like 2 weeks of prep into something, and my crew there, and she wakes up saying, I don't feel good, I don't feel like doing it today. You know, it's a very fine line between director and father at that point. Where I basically say, you're going to do it. And my producer, who's an accomplished actress, she was the executive producer on that, and the actress and my producer, Nina Rosh, you know, my daughter would be there sitting there complaining, no, I don't want, I go, okay, one more, and then action, and she was the character, like that fast. And Nina would be like, how the hell does she do that? I teach acting. I can't get any of my actors to do that. We're all trying to figure out how to get back to doing that. So she was really brilliant in it, but she was a challenge, you know. She's like, how many takes? I'm like, as many as it takes. She needed a number. So, okay, 5. And at 5, you know, if I wanted more, it was very difficult to get more. Or can't say great, like she would do something, I'd be like, okay, great. And then she's like, then why are we doing it again? So I had her come with me when I had Camila Banus, who is a professional actress, and watch Camila work, who's an Emmy-nominated actress on Days of Our Lives. And I said, did you ever see Camila asking me how many more takes? Did you ever see Camila ask about what time are we going to quit? Or did you ever see her say anything other than, yeah, Ken, whatever you want, let's do it. And so once she saw that, then it changed. And then when we started doing Q&As, I would explain to her, I enjoyed our process and how we worked in the process, but you have to understand, don't take it personal when someone asks me an honest question, like, how was it working with your wife? How was it working with your daughter? I go, it doesn't mean that I don't love you, and it doesn't mean that I go, but I have to give an honest answer. Just like with us, I communicate, you know, very clearly with her, and so she goes, yeah, I get it, Papa. And I go, okay, cool. I go, I love the experience. I go, but you were difficult. And she's like, I know. And she's like, I go, and I have to talk about that because it's honest. So, you know, it is an interesting thing, and she's doing her own thing now, and so she's at an art school and working on her own projects, and she's starting to really understand what I do.
And I'm sure it was invaluable to her. You know, kids act one way with their parents than they do with
Oh, definitely.
outsiders.
You know, when I shot my 4th film in Mexico, I had about 50 extras. All of them were, you know, gang members that couldn't come back into the country, and they just loved and adored me. Yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you need, yeah, absolutely. And then I get home and I couldn't get my 9-year-old and my 6-year-old to go to bed, you know, so...
No one hustles like he does. No one I know. He is one of the most disciplined artists I know. He wakes up in the morning, takes my daughter to school, goes to a coffee shop of his choice, writes for 3 to 4 hours, goes home, takes a nap, and goes to work. At work, he comes home with napkins, with ideas. He comes home the next day, does the same thing. He writes every single day. Some days he writes 2 sentences. Some days I got home and he's like, I'm on fire, I just wrote 10 pages. But he does it every day, whether he has met his expectations, or he's very hard on himself. He's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, you're working on 4 projects. How is that not doing anything?
Let's talk about distribution. It's nice to make a film, but if you keep it in the closet or in your computer, it doesn't help anybody.
No, absolutely.
Maybe talk about when we went to Cannes.
A Mexican in Cannes. Let's talk about
Cholo
that.
Chaplin went to Cannes.
Wow.
Yeah,
This is big.
Well, we had done the first 5 episodes of The Misadventures of Cholo Chaplin. This is way before Coco, and I mean way before Coco. And we got into the short film corner, which is pretty much an open forum for any short films.
At Cannes.
At Cannes, yeah.
Okay.
Very fortunate friends that and my parents gave us money to go. So we had just bought a house, so I was like, we can't really afford to do this, but we got to go, you know. So we went, and that was a huge education in terms of distribution. This is again before like digital content, and so we went there, and I met a guy named Peter Broderick, who basically said, you've done a ton of work here. Do not give this away for free. Package it, sell it. That was when self-distribution was first coming out. This is 2008 now, or 2007. So when we got back, that's what I did. I had my best friend who was in graphic design at the time. She created a DVD cover. I had 1,000 DVD printed from a printing house, and I had this incredible DVD that looked like you would buy in a store, and submitted it to every film festival I possibly could, and Latino film festival, and got rejected by everybody. I said, okay, I have this very cool DVD. I'll just go to these festivals in LA that have rejected my work, and I'm just going to hand out my DVD. And so in doing that, there was a production company, distribution company at one of these festivals, saw it and said, wait, what is this? Wait, I have to have this. We can sell this. This is awesome. This is exactly what we're looking for. And I said, well, it's only 30 minutes because they were short films. That's 5-6 minute episodes. He says, well, can you give me 90 minutes of content just so we could package it? And I said, look, even if I gave you my raw footage, it wouldn't be that. He said, well, do you have any feature film scripts in the urban genre? I said, of course I do. I didn't at the time. I just had treatments and, ideas. He said, listen, we have money for 3 films. If we like what you're doing, you could be one of them. And I said, okay. So I'm working on this script right now. I have it to you by the end of April. This was March. And then I had to get to work. I actually had somebody that was going to give me $50,000 to make a feature film. So that's how I got distribution for that first project. In self-distribution for my short films, I got the attention of a distributor. The key to distribution in the independent world literally is genre specific. If you're doing science fiction, if you're doing horror, you're not going to have a problem getting distribution. Those aren't my genres. And I've tried to come up with ideas, but you never want to make something just so it can get distribution, right? I've been fortunate that the urban genre is my genre. I grew up with this genre. I love this genre, and I love making movies in this genre. I was just fortunate that it is a popular thing. I mean, you have Queen of the South on TV, you have Narcos, you have Mayans MC now. It's a popular genre in spite of the blowback they get for stereotypical characters. I love it. I love the characters, and I love the drama of it. That's essentially what I always tell people. If you're doing your coming of age story that your grandfather told you when you grew up, like, it's really going to be very hard for you to get distribution. If you have Brad Pitt attached to that project, it's going to be hard to get distribution. You have to look at what is being bought out there. I'm not saying you have to cater your creative vision to that. I'm just saying, know ahead of time, is this going to sell? And sometimes it's hard. Marigold The Matador, I know it was not going to sell. I knew it, but I had to tell it anyway. Now, I have it, and I'm focused on Netflix. Now there are avenues. It's not really distribution, it's just streaming. You can get it on Amazon Prime, you can get it on iTunes, your film, you can get it out that way. But true distribution is the company is putting some time and effort and money into promoting your movie. There's several ways to get your film out into the world now, but essentially it is through streaming. Netflix is the only one that pays up front for their content, which is what I'm saving Marigold for. Counterpunch was a boxing film I did that got on Netflix and ran for 2 years, and we didn't go to Sundance. There were Sundance films that didn't run that long on Netflix. It was a boxing drama, and that genre is popular. So it really is genre specific in terms of what you're doing. But you can get your stuff on, for small fees, on Amazon Prime and on iTunes. And a lot of filmmakers I know do that. Is there a lot of money involved in that? Not really. Danny Trejo's in that, Stephen Bauer. I mean, those are 2 guys that came in to do this film who didn't know me and did it. I have to tell you, I've met all my heroes in this business, and those are the only 2 that said, I don't know who you are, but I love what you're doing. I love your energy. Let's do it. I know the money's not great. I know we got to work fast, and came in and do it. And these are guys that don't preach about support and all that stuff. They do it. You know what I mean? They don't talk about it. They do it.
I played Stephen's wife on an independent film called Rave. He is probably one of the most underrated Latino, just actors. Yeah. I don't even want to say Latino, but just one of the most underrated actors.
Very generous too.
First of all, he is so skilled, but he has such an uncanny ability to know where the camera is.
Played a really bad guy in my film, and you still liked him. And he had the best exits and entrances. The way he would come in and come out is like you said, the guy who just knows the camera, was so fun to work with him and watch him work and be so generous to my lead actor whom he didn't know.
He's a
he
generous
just gave,
actor
he
to
just
the
gave.
other actors. Working with Robert Townsend for the last 15 years, I've learned about production, post-production, and distribution.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen happening in distribution the last few years is that the distributors are raping the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
That, we've done several films where we didn't get what we should have gotten. They'll buy your work, but then you've got to, if you have union actors, you have to pay
You're on
the
hook.
residuals.
You're on the hook.
So you're not really making anything. They're taking and making money off of you.
And the unions are they're never going to catch up. They're so far behind on this. This is why I'm always critical of our unions. And I know a lot of actors, and I'm starting to see it now in the audition process, where actors are either going SAG-FICOR, or they just want to keep their SAG eligibility. They don't want to be SAG because they know there's more independent work out there. But the problem is there's so much need for, and I hate the word content, but that's the word I'm going to use, need for content. That stuff is being made all over the world, and it's being distributed all over the world, and the distributor controls the numbers. We don't have access to that, and they're not obligated to give the producers access, especially if it's a straight acquisition. So to give you an example, like Beasts of No Nation was one of Netflix's first acquisitions from an independent filmmaker, and they paid $12 million for it, and it was a $3 million budget. They did pretty good. Now, someone told me, yeah, but what if Netflix made $100 million on it? I'm like, who cares? I go, because what would you rather, that you get nothing and then them tell you, oh, well, it didn't do as well as we thought it would? And that is the big lie. And now you can get paid, but then you have to get, attorneys involved and audits involved. And as an independent filmmaker, you can't afford those things.
And that's another thing you have to be aware of as an independent filmmaker, is when you sell your project to a distribution house, you want to get what you can up front, because you're never going to get the back end.
Absolutely.
Never.
That's the best advice I can give any independent filmmaker, is get your money up front. There's no such thing as back end in independent filmmaking.
You have much better access to self-distribute.
Absolutely.
To make a good living off of your project than to give it to somebody who is not really going to do much. Everybody's not going to get to a Netflix, but you can recoup your money, and you can do well if you know how to utilize social media, if you know how to create a network for your projects.
There are very few filmmakers I've seen to be very successful in that, because that takes a whole different set of skills, and it also takes a lot more effort. And those aren't things that I'm very good at. I'm good at making the movie and getting it out there, but in terms of marketing, I just find it so... I don't like people that are constantly selling themselves. Especially when you look behind. I always tell people, go deeper, look deeper, and when you look behind someone, the loudest voice in the room has usually done the least amount of work. And the person that is not the loudest person in the room, they're not, because they're working.
Right. So let's talk about social media, because when you started, that wasn't an option. Mm-hmm. And now that's the form of communication today. Mm-hmm. I'll Facebook you, I'll Instagram you, I'll direct message you. What do you see as the positives of social media as an artist?
It allows you to see what opportunities are out there, depending on how you use it. I primarily use it for my family and immediate and friends. I don't do a lot of promotion on it, but it really allows you to see, oh, they're auditioning for something, or there's this opportunity for directing. So it really allows you to reach out in that way, where, we're in LA, we're so spread out, and, I have a lot of friends that are working, and that's a way they get a hold of me if they want me to work on a project. But for him, I think it's been a different experience, and it can be somewhat frustrating, because it takes time. It takes, when we were doing the campaign to raise money for Marigold, I had never been on social media that much in my life. And by the end, I was exhausted, because every day we were posting and posting and posting, and what are we going to post? And knowing that there are people that become famous for ridiculous things, that is a little difficult sometimes, is when you've put in the work, and you know a lot of talented people that aren't working, that deserve to be working, but because some YouTubers did something silly and now they have a show, it's a little bit disheartening at times. But also, I don't think they have a long life in the business. Yeah, they have, they'll get a show and that'll be it, and all the kids that were watching them are grown. That's also the wonderful thing about it, is if you are creative and you don't have budget to make a movie and you do something creative, someone might notice, and that will springboard your career. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I think as a filmmaker, it's made it easier for me to get my work out, social media, and also just connecting with people, inviting people to screenings. And that's actually super helpful is when I do have a screening and people are taking pictures and tagging each other on it and everything else. And it's a really great way to get your work out there. Who are you in this business? What are you trying to accomplish? I'm a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm not looking to make anything go viral per se. You know what I mean? I'm trying to I'm showing you something that took time and effort and energy, and hopefully I connect with you. But that doesn't go away. Like, you still have to connect with the audience. And if they don't connect with what you're doing, then you can't really get mad at that. You got to try something else. I never let social media try and dictate to me what I want to do. If this isn't working, then that's fine. Then I got to try something else. Feedback in terms of what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And you never know who's watching. When I've reached out to certain people in this industry, when they've actually have taken the time to look at what I've done and done what you have done, it makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to sell myself because they already know, well, this is your work. Now we get to meet the person, and do we like you? So it helps in that sense. But I think, if what you're trying to do is go viral, that's different than wanting to be a storyteller or a filmmaker. You know what I mean? There are classes at MIT where they have them create something, and the assignment is to make a viral video. That's not necessarily what, as filmmakers, that we do. You know what I mean? And all the people that I look up to don't really post on social media. So.
Right. I think social media is such a gem for young filmmakers who do extraordinary work, but they don't have an audience yet.
Right.
Like
building an audience, it's invaluable.
What I would have never probably known you had it not been for social media.
Perfect
because
example.
I saw a post, and then that took me to your website, and then I was like, oh my God, this guy is doing some good work. How can we support him? Because I'm a believer that if I see somebody in my community doing something, it's not an option, I need to support. You're a great example of a healthy artist who keeps moving the ball forward. And it doesn't matter how many paces. What matters is you're moving it. At some point, you have to stop waiting for it to happen, and you have to make it happen. You can't bitch and complain about people not going to see your work if you don't go and support your fellow artists.
Right.
You can't.
His genre is the urban genre. He's had a lot of people that will contact him or let him know that they're not going to support him because of the stereotypical characters.
Bullshit.
First thing
but they'll go support white people who are doing the stereotypical character.
You said it right there.
But if he's doing it right, and it's actors they don't know, it's stereotypical. If Edward James Olmos is doing it and he's playing a gangster, it's art.
I call bullshit.
And he's had people that will intentionally let him know that they are not supporting him because of what he is doing. And I said, have you seen the movie? No. Have you seen Cholo Chaplin? No, but I don't like the name. Well, if you see it, you'll get that it's the anti-Cholo. And even if he was a Cholo, all his characters are multi-dimensional characters. They're not just the Cholo. The women in his scripts all have strong roles and have amazing backgrounds, and they're fully developed characters, which is something that Hollywood doesn't get right. When I used to audition, I had 5 different Chola outfits. I had the slutty Chola, the LA Kings Chola, I had the, whatever, because that's all I was going out for. But they were written very very they were written stereotypical. He knows that world. He grew up in that world. I grew up in that world. So there's a level of authenticity and a wholeness to those characters that doesn't exist in Hollywood.
I've been doing this a long time. I've been behind the curtain, and the main reason why a lot of us are not working behind the wall is that there's such a lack of altruism among our own people, so that if someone does get a show or someone does get an opportunity, they don't want to ruffle feathers to bring another Latino in, because there has to be Ava DuVernay, to me, has shown the way. She's someone who's doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk. She's been very outspoken about Hollywood and the problems, but she's followed it with success, and she's created opportunities. She goes out of her way to find female filmmakers that haven't got an opportunity to direct TV, and she brings them onto their show. We don't have that, you know what I mean? And I don't have a problem with Latinos that are successful not helping us. You have to make your own career, I get it. But don't go on a panel and talk about how we have to support each other, when I know for a fact you're not giving us opportunities behind, and then come out here and go accept your award at some other conference or whatever, and everyone just is like this because they want to get a picture with this person who's successful. That's great. We should help each other. Who have you helped and how? That question never gets answered. And so I'm not asking for anyone to give me an opportunity. I'm trying to earn my opportunity. My problem is the hypocrisy. Don't be that Latino that has made it and tell us all how we need to support your show and we need to do this, that, and the other, and then you're not putting us behind the camera, because that is the only longevity we have. There have been stars in front of the Latino stars in front of the camera. We can't assume that success of those certain individuals is going to open doors for us. It hasn't over the years. We're making the same argument. Right now, the iPhone 7 can go and you can shoot a feature film with that. I don't know any Latinos that I know of that are doing that, because you know why? It's not glamorous. They want the lights and the cameras, and they want to be able to, but taking your little phone. I shot 2 mini documentaries and 2 short films on my iPhone. And when I tell people that, they're like, how did you do that? There are ways to make it look really incredible. But it is frustrating because I'm not a celebrity per se, and a lot of people don't know my work because I am very outspoken towards Latin Hollywood, because I feel like Latin Hollywood has taken Hollywood, which is this being that they criticize and want to be a part of, and instead of doing something better and fresher, they're just doing a Latin version of a system that they don't like. That's where I have an issue with it. So I don't participate in a lot of film festivals and conferences and stuff like that because I don't see that moving our people forward. And I don't understand why filmmakers that are just starting out go to these places when there isn't even a proven. Do your homework, investigate, find out what's working and what's not working. And if all you want is a red carpet picture with a Latino celebrity, that's really easy to get. But if what you want is a career, you have to make the dedication, you have to do the work, you have to help other people. Even if they burn you, you have to help other people succeed in what they're doing, because that's just a given. That's just going to happen.
Here's the thing. We have to learn to be generous. We have such shame about our backgrounds, our rich history. And so what happens is you have white writers jacking our stories,
right,
and not telling them right. White directors jacking our projects and not telling them right. We have to get out of that slave and welfare mentality, like give me mine, and stop being gatekeepers. We have gotten into this thing about being a gatekeeper.
It took me a while to realize it, but there was a time probably after my 4th feature film where I was really kind of frustrated because I wasn't getting a lot of support from my film community. The Latino audience has been there for every single one of my projects. That's why I have 7 of them. The Latino film community has not, and that's okay. But
it's not okay.
It's
not okay.
My point is, I just was telling her, I go, I don't know what it is, and I think part of it was there was a jealousy involved. Well, we're not going to help you because you keep working and working and working. You don't necessarily need it. Film festivals in particular, I'm not a film festival darling, and again, I say that's fine. What bothers me is when I do see the films that get in, and I do see the filmmakers get in, and they don't do another project at all. It's like, if you're going to use that publicity, give it to someone who knows that can do with it. You talk about people appropriating our stories. I've had my work copied and then...
Not copied, you've had your work jacked. Let's call a spade a spade.
I've had my work jacked and then go get into festivals that have rejected my stuff. Probably the only filmmaker who got rejected by the Los Angeles Film Festival, because they're the only film festival I sent all my work to. So 7 films got rejected 8 times. So how do you do that? They rejected Marigold twice in 1 week. But like I've said in the past, it doesn't really matter because I keep going, and there isn't one festival, even Sundance, that really, and that's another thing, it is sometimes it's just about ego stroke. I look at it now, what can help me get this film out? And with social media, they've made the film festival pretty obsolete, in my opinion. Success in this business is 2 things. It's you doing the work, and then the person that can get you to that next level, them noticing. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. I haven't met that person yet, but I've continued to do the work. I'm striving to get up here, you know what I mean? I think a lot of times I'm seeing people, independent filmmakers, they're more concerned about having something to post on social media, that they're doing something. So I'm seeing a lot of people start things but not finish them. And when they do finish them, more care has been put into the red carpet gala than the actual film. You know, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. If this is what you want to do, you'll find a way. We live in a great time. Technology-wise has leveled the playing field. There is no excuses. Here's the thing though, it's that easy and it's that hard.